Learning occurs in many different forms and happens constantly throughout a person's lifespan. Context-dependent learning in particular provides insight into how information is encoded and then later retrieved. The idea behind this process is that the environment a person is in when they learn some information will affect their ability to retrieve that information. While studies have been done to support this theory, the article, Developmental Differences in Children's Context-Dependent Word Learning, focuses on this type of learning from a different angle. Hartshorne suggested the idea that specificity constraints on memory retrieval become progressively looser as children move through different stages of development. With this in mind, the researchers who wrote the article developed a study to measure the effects of context-dependent learning on children who were still in developmental stages. The purpose of the study was to investigate how word learning might be affected by background context. Experimenters gathered a pool of participants across the ages of 2 through 5 and exposed them to words based on certain images that were presented in different contexts, and then they later asked them to retrieve this information. There were 3 experimental groups: the matching condition, the mismatching condition, and the multiple condition. Participants were broken up into age groups first and then randomly assigned to a condition so as to measure how this change in environment or context might be altered across different stages of development. In the study previously mentioned, Haley Bloch and Catherine Sandhofer did an experiment to investigate how word learning might be affected by background context across different ages of development. They gathered 108 children from age groups of 2 through 5, and they placed them in different condition groups in which they were expected to learn certain words based on the images they were presented with. The first condition was the match condition. Here, they were presented with images on a green background, and then they were later asked to recall those images on the same green background. The second condition was the mismatch condition, in which the participants learned words in one context and then were tested in a different context. So they were shown images on multiple color backgrounds, and then when they were asked to recall them, they were again presented on these same color backgrounds. The final condition was the multiple condition. Here, the participants learned words in a different context for each word, and then they were tested in an even different context. They were shown images on multiple backgrounds, but when they were asked to recall these images, they were presented on a different color background than they had learned them. In the study, researchers found that children found it easier to remember images in the same context that they had learned them. However, there wasn't much of a difference between the mismatch and the multiple conditions. They also found that older children had an easier time remembering than the younger children. Allison is studying in the same room as she will be taking her test in next week.
Casie is studying outside for the same test.
As you can see, studying in the same environment as you take a test in is beneficial. Allison did better, and Casie not so much.
The skit showed how the learning environment can affect information retrieval. In this case, the student who chose to study for their exam in the classroom under similar conditions that they might experience during the test scored better on their exam than the student who studied outside.